Hello and welcome to the Double Your Freelancing podcast, where you'll learn how to raise your rates, get more clients, and just generally have a way better life as a freelancer or agency owner. I'm your host, Zach Swinehart, and today I'm here with Laura, who is one of the co-owners of Double Your Freelancing, along with her husband, Brennan, who's the founder. And we're going to be talking about a concept they call road mapping, which essentially allows you to get paid to send proposals to clients. And the reason that it's cool is that you, well, number one, cut a bunch of time that you're spending making proposals that don't pan out. But beyond that, you actually often will close more clients at the end of the day than you would have if you weren't doing proposals, because they value you more and it helps you be more of a strategic influencer. If you're struggling with commoditized work, this can be useful. At their agency where they're using this right now, basically, Brennan has a software tool called Write Message, and it's a really powerful tool that helps with segmentation and stuff for online marketers, but it has a really kind of janky-ish onboarding. And so he rolled out an agency offering because people have been asking for him to do it forever, where instead of them having to onboard themselves, he's like, I'll just onboard you. And so they've got this agency doing that called Slice and Dice. And so far, they've worked with cool clients like Justin Welsh, Tiago Forte, Ali Abdul, Jonathan Fields, and a bunch more. And they are currently selling road mapping at their agency for $6,000 a pop, and then selling bigger paid projects on the back of that range from like $12,000 to $50,000, $60,000 kinds of dollar area. And what's cool is that their conversion rate from somebody hiring them for road mapping into one of these big paid projects is like 50% or something like that. The disclaimer is that like Slice and Dice is a weird agency because Brennan has like a very strong personal brand, and they're not like trying to do an agency with it. They just rolled it out to help people onboard who don't really have the energy to onboard themselves into the SaaS. But road mapping in general, not just road mapping the way these guys are doing it, is hugely impactful. It's a way to stop this time sink into proposals that don't pan out, or just like spending hours that was for nothing. And we've seen freelancers and agency owners all across the board over the years get a huge amount of value from this. So instead of focusing in this interview today a lot, which is what I originally wanted to do, on how Brennan and Laura are doing it right now in Slice and Dice, we're going to keep it more like zoomed out, holistic, because as cool as it would be to look at the exact way they're doing it, it sounds like there just wouldn't be as much value there as looking at the concept in general and what we're seeing kind of cross the board for all types of freelancers, especially because something that might work for Brennan might not work for you. He has such a strong personal brand. And I think it's kind of overwhelming to conceptualize like, oh, I have to sell road mapping for $6,000 a pop, but my whole freaking project is like $1,000. That's not going to apply to me. But it will. So we're going to be talking about how, regardless of whether you are kind of on the more commoditized side freelancing right now or on the more strategic consulting side, you can use this concept of road mapping to earn more, springboard into higher value long-term projects, and close a higher percentage of your clients, get more dollars for your time, all sorts of good stuff. So really excited to jump into that with you. And thanks for being here. One note before we dive in is that today's interview is kind of unique in that we're going to use it for two things. So if you're here, you're listening to this on the public podcast version or whatever. Hello, welcome to the public podcast version. Laura has this business called Project Pack where she makes these like templates that make it really easy for freelancers to like create proposals, send pitches, that kind of stuff. And she actually has one on paid discovery. So if you end up listening to today's episode and you're like, oh my gosh, road mapping sounds so awesome, but what do I do to pitch it? What's an exact copy and paste template that I could use to close deals from it? How could I deliver the actual document? How should I structure my document? Basically, the Black Friday deal this year at DYF is going to be all of her paid discovery Project Pack things at a huge discount. I convinced her to let us sell it, big discount, so you can just like swipe all these things to do all the stuff we're talking about today really quickly, really easily. And then we have like a bonus kind of deep divey thing where I do the longer version of this interview with her to get a bunch of details on how you can close way more deals with road mapping, how you can avoid some of the biggest mistakes, how you can like make the rest of the year strong so that you jump into 2025 with all your roadmap experimentation ready to go. And basically just like take the templates that, if you have bought them because you're seeing this after Black Friday, take these templates you bought and really make the most of them and hit the ground running. So that said, in today's interview, we're going to go kind of high level, like what is road mapping? How can we do it? How can we avoid some common mistakes? That kind of stuff. And then if you are seeing this in the full bonus version, we're going to go a lot more deep onto some of the how-tos, some of the behind the scenes of how they're doing it right now, the mistakes that they've made, how to fix those mistakes, that kind of stuff. So let's jump into the proper interview, and we're going to just do our dang best to not make it too jarring with the cuts. See ya in a second in the main interview. All right, Laura, great to have you here. Really excited to dig into road mapping with you. So to kick things off, what is road mapping? Like, what's the 20-second soundbite, real sexy, makes these people listening want to watch the whole episode version of what road mapping is?
I don't know if I can do it in 20 seconds, but I'll try. Road mapping is basically where you get to charge money to write proposals for your clients, and they absolutely love it.
That was great. I think that was under 20 seconds. I wasn't timing it, but it seems pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to go into the fact that there's a lot more to it than that. And then I thought, no, I'll just leave it at that for now. We'll get into that.
Yeah. And you can tease a little bit of that right now, because I was going to say, what are your 3 favorite things about it? Like, why is it awesome? What are the top 3 in order of awesomeness?
So I'd say my first one is that it's a surprisingly easy sell. This is kind of like 1 and 2. It's an easy sell because, number 2, clients love it and get a lot of value out of it. And then my third thing would be that it's a very structured project that you can kind of run very easily, that's not going to kind of go off the rails in any kind of different direction. You can time box it, like you know how long these things take. You can kind of plan it. So it's easy for you, it's great for your clients, and it's a really easy sell.
Love it. And for you guys watching or listening, one thing that's a big priority for me today, like the way that Laura and Brennan are using road mapping at the Right Message Agency is maybe or maybe not at all like how you might use it in yours. And so those things Laura just said about it being structured, it can't go off the rails, clients love it, it's a small micro engagement, like these are the kind of first principles parameters that define it, not the specific implementation that they're using. So what I'll be wanting to kind of dig into with Laura today is like what actually makes for a good or bad roadmap when you're deciding the scope for your specific business and it doesn't necessarily look like theirs. So real nice teed up question for the next one is like, just kind of what does road mapping look like? So maybe you can start by just telling us, let's not even go into slice and dice yet, because I think yours is more complicated. I know you like the SEO one you mention all the time. I sometimes talk about termite inspectors fictitiously. So let's just like throw out a few examples. Like what's road mapping look like? What are examples of a few wildly different types of road mapping engagements?
Yeah, so there's different scales of it. You can do road mapping on a smaller scale, which is essentially just a proposal that's like a really scoped out project that you charge money for. And then you can go way up into the more consulting, I'm going to show you what to do in your entire business, which is more like what we do on the slice and dice kind of scale, and then everything in between. So it can be quite varied, but it tends to be used as a starting off point when you haven't worked with someone before, and you would do a road mapping engagement to, first off work with the client and have the client work with you, and to figure out what the project needs to look like. Sometimes the client might not even know what they need. If you're a web designer, they might come to you and say, I need a website, but they don't know how to write a brief for a website, because how are they going to know all the technical ins and outs that they need, or the strategic ins and outs? And what tends to happen is, of course, they'll write a badly written brief, you will quote for that, and then you'll either get a lot of scope creep, or the client's budget is just going to be, it's just going to go way out of budget. So it kind of starts in that kind of scale, and you can do it for any any service really. So, web design is one. I've hired a copywriter for road mapping before. I've hired an SEO agency and I've done road mapping with them. I personally love it when I see people who offer road mapping because it gives me a chance to work with them and for them to tell me what, in their experience working on these kinds of projects all the time, they probably see a ton of businesses like mine. What do they think I should be doing? Because I'm just guessing, whereas I feel like they know. And I have a quick story actually about, bringing it into like the real world where we wanted to get some custom shelving built recently for our living room. And we got a carpenter in who came highly recommended, really, really good at his craft. And he sort of came in and he was just like, so what do you want? And we're like, well, some kind of like shelves to go in these alcoves. And he's like, what material? How many shelves? Like what color? Like, and we were trying to explain to him, we were like, well, you see houses like this all the time. We're not interior designers. Like based on our house and the character of our house, like what do you reckon? And he would not tell us. He wouldn't give us any idea because he was like, no, you tell me what you want and I'll do it. But he would not tell us what he recommended. And we were just like, but you have all this experience. He just didn't want to take on, I guess, any risk of us not being happy or something. But we ended up obviously not working with him because we couldn't deal with the fact that, he had all this expertise and he wouldn't share it with us. And, it's one of those things where road mapping, paid discovery, it can be used in so many different industries, online and offline, really.
Yeah, and it seems like the biggest benefit of it is that if you are on the receiving end or the creating end of a proposal that is unpaid, the incentive for the person creating the proposal is to like get it done as quickly as possible, basically, because it's just time you're working for free. So you're doing all this research to create it, and you don't really want to have to go to this person's house to like interview them deeply about all of their various color preferences and what their personal history is with the color taupe, which I think taupe is a brown. Is taupe? I don't know what color taupe is, but some sort of esoteric brown color, like chestnut. Do you have any like bad experiences as a child with chestnut? Because I wouldn't want to recommend chestnut shelves if you personally, you don't want to do all that because this person may decide to just like buy cheap shelves off the shelf, pun intended, from like Home Depot or whatever, and you burn all your time. So it seems like it really kind of solves both ends because it allows you to provide a more valuable service. And in the case of this shelf one, I think this is a really great road mapping example because even if you hired this dude for like a $500 or $300 whatever assessment of your home and your preferences, like, and you decided, actually, I don't like shelves. Shelves are dumb. Thanks to this guy helping me realize that, you got value from that. And if you decided you did want shelves, this dude who provided value to you would be the obvious choice of who to hire to do your shelves. So yeah, I think that is actually a really good, clear-cut example more than the actual
and the guy
freelance
got
ones.
paid for it, so he's not.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have a big incentive to kind of try to persuade you to get shelves. Obviously, presumably, he wants you to work with him, but either way, he's getting paid, and most people would rather have happy, satisfied customers than do the wrong thing. I think most people are pretty like moral and they want you to get like the best result. And this way, he's not really damaging himself because he's been paid for that. And actually what I kind of find is that road mapping in itself can be such a lucrative revenue stream that you might end up just wanting to do the road mapping for people and, maybe slightly hoping that people don't go for the full project because you can do, if you have the lead volume, you can do quite a lot of road mapping engagements. You can provide a ton of value. Clients will be really happy. And it can be it's not quite MRR, but it can sort of become a little bit more, feel like more like recurring revenue. And it's quite easy on your end because, as I'm sure like when you do the bigger projects, there's always going to be things, things are just a bit more messy when you do bigger projects. So it's really valuable for both sides, for your clients and for you as well. But I think there are some people as well who will refuse to work with anyone who doesn't do the initial road mapping phase. And, you're kind of getting into the stage where, if you want to go down that route, you have to have, quite an established agency and be okay with clients saying no. I think a really powerful position to be in, which is really hard, is not feeling like you have to take on every single client. And that's easier said than done when you've got bills to pay, and or you just think, oh, but the money would be really good. Once you're in that position of not having or feeling like you have to say yes to everybody, you have a lot more power to kind of dictate how this goes. And you can say, the reason we do it this way is because ultimately we want you to be successful. I don't want to just take your money and run. Like, this is how we see the most success with people, and this is why we do it this way. And then if they go elsewhere, fine. It doesn't mean that road mapping's bad or you've done a bad job, unless no one's saying yes. But if a few people say no, that's okay. It's fine. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It's just they're not a good fit. But then I also understand that is a difficult position to be in, and it sounds easier than it is.
And that's what I wanted to ask. So I think probably one of the biggest objections or fears around adopting a sort of road mapping model is that like all this stuff we're talking about sounds all well and good, like philosophically sitting up in ivory tower talking theoretically land. But then when you put yourself into the real situation where someone's like, hey, Zach, can you make me a website? And now I have to either say, cool, answer these questions and I'll bid it out for you. Or I have to say, yo, you got to pay me for this roadmap. That's where the rubber meets the road and gets hard. And I think that the biggest fear and objection is like, will me pitching road mapping perhaps cost me a client who would have hired me to build the website if only I had done it the traditional proposal way? And now not only are they not paying me for the roadmap, they're also not hiring me for that website. I think that's the fear. So what are your thoughts on that? Okay.
I mean,
so you think
that could happen. Okay. That definitely could happen. It's a risk. What I would say is, at some point you have to just try. Road mapping doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to wake up one day and say, I am doing road mapping for everyone now, today. Freelancers mostly have a feast and famine kind of situation. Set a goal for yourself that says, during my next feast, I am going to offer one client road mapping and see how it goes. And I am going to be totally fine. Not totally. You'll probably be a bit disappointed, but I'll be fine if it doesn't pan out. But I'm going to do it once. It's like everything. It's like, it is scary, but you have to just do it. It's like I went to a conference earlier in the year, and I'm very bad at going up and talking to people that I don't know and saying hello. And I gave myself a target of, I have to talk to 5 people. I have to go up to 5 people and say hello. And yes, there might be like awkward pauses, or, they might just completely ignore me, or, it could be really, really awkward. But even if I get nothing out of it and they all hate me, if I've gone to 5 people and said hello, then I pat myself on the back because I did it. So I think all you have to do is just try it, but you have to force yourself and know that I don't think there's really going to be a right time that it's suddenly going to feel really easy. But you just got to kind of bite the bullet and see how it goes. But yeah, it is going to be a risk. So if you are desperate for money and, you're on that level, then it might not be the best time to start, because that will impact how you come across as well. Like, not needing the project is quite powerful. And body language, all that kind of stuff really does make a difference, I think.
So let's noodle for a sec on ways to like lower the risk of dabbling. So one idea that I have, for example, is that if someone's on the fence where they're like, well, I can't fuck with this. If I'm going to potentially lose out on projects, it's bad. I wonder what the lower risk ways to dabble are. And one idea that comes to mind for me is, if that's you and you're in this position where you don't want to even try something that might cost you a client because you can't afford to be cost a client. Maybe for you think about this like post-project roadmap pivot. So you do your normal main project proposal the same way, but you make a little goal to take those 2 actionable things Laura and I said earlier and implement them. So you roll out my question into your sales call, which is just like, why do you want this website, man? And then Laura's post-project deliverable thing of like, what's next for you? You add these 2 questions to your workflow. Those will not cost you any sales at all. They'll gain you sales, if anything, because they can see you care about their business goals, not just getting the project. And then you pitch the road mapping on the back of your regular project, and you pitch another project on the back of that. So it's almost like, do what you're doing now. Pitch a roadmap, the roadmap pitch is another thing, because if you're being hired for websites now or logo design now or brand identity now, if you took like 20 minutes to talk to ChatGPT and do some journaling and think about it, I bet you could think of a lot of projects that clients would benefit from doing with you next. And if you already closed the client and right now you're not even pitching other stuff next, there's really no risk to you to dabble with pitching roadmap after a normal project. What do you think about that, Lauren? Can you think of any other ways that are like a way to lower the risk of experimenting with road mapping to not be cost clients as a result?
I think that's a really good idea. That's pitching it afterwards, I think, makes a lot of sense. Also having it as kind of a low cost, I think, is going to reduce the risk, something that clients aren't going to be too worried about. I think if you had it as low cost, I would struggle. Most clients are going to go for it. I really do think, unless, like I said, they're the starter clients. Taking the price of the road mapping off the main project is another one to reduce the risk. I'm trying to think if there's a way to basically have road mapping as an option that's not. It depends what kind of road mapping it is, because the problem is that you can't say, would you like to pay me to scope out the project, or I'll do it for free? It's up to you. Like, no one's going to choose.
But you could do it as like the next level, be like, yeah, I could bid on this for you. But honestly, dude, what I think you'd really benefit from is my blah, blah, blah package, where I'll give you all this stuff you're asking for here. And I also go a level deeper than what makes sense for a proposal, where I'm going to look at your metrics and your Google Analytics and your heuristic analysis, blah, 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 fancy term, doctor words. And then I'm going to give you this like really cool document.
Yeah.
And if you do hire me for this website, you get that whole document for free. And if you don't, you can take this document to another web designer and they'll do better work for less money than if you just gave them like you could do it like that. So you say, yes, option A, what you're asking for. Option B, this cool, and it's only $100, man. Or whatever no-brainer price would be. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think that could work really well as well.
And the reason that even that I said $100 man versus $1,000 man versus $2,000 man is like, there's this sales and marketing principle for you guys listening that all the copywriters know about, but there's like this idea of the quote foot in the door technique copywriters know about. And whenever you see like a sales funnel, if somebody buys a product, even a cheap one, even something that was like $5, even something that was $1, if somebody associates like opening their wallet to work with you versus like getting stuff for free, like it changes the subconscious relationship. And that someone who spends at least the rationale is, I don't have metrics, but someone who spends any amount of money with you is more likely to hire you for other stuff, including more expensive stuff. And so even if your roadmap was a laughably dumb price that is an absolute loss leader, like suppose you normally charge $100 an hour and you sell your roadmap for $45 and it takes you 2 hours to do, like you're not making money on that roadmap. But you'll probably close more of those proposals that someone paid $45 to receive than you would close the proposals that people got for free, because they will like assign value to it because they paid for it. I wish Laura and I were talking in the pre-interview and I was like, yo, Laura, what metrics you got for me, man? And she doesn't have conversion rate metrics. So I can't look at before and afters, but I wish I had metrics of like, here's what my close rate was of proposals before road mapping, and here's what it was after. Oh, Laura, where can I get those metrics? Can you think of anywhere? I don't know where I could find those metrics. I want them so bad.
Well, when everyone's doing road mapping after they hear this interview, then you get them.
So listeners, track your metrics. Please tell me what they are. I want to know the numbers.
Yeah.
That'll be great. So to zoom this to like a rapid fire-ish kind of thing, like if you were to throw out just what you think are the biggest pitfalls you see, like where freelancers go wrong when trying to roll out road mapping, can you think of like a nice listicle 5? I know you said you're great at bullet points a few minutes ago. So like, where do you think top 5, top 3, top X areas where they go wrong, pitfalls, mistakes?
I think one big one is, to be honest, is lack of confidence in road mapping itself, which means that you're not explaining the benefits well enough. The second thing would be using it on the wrong clients and not kind of getting that gut feel, because there are clients actually who do have the budget who wouldn't be a good fit that we didn't mention earlier. So, sometimes you get clients who ask for, RFPs, requests for proposals, and they're very corporate. And very corporate clients have their own processes and they expect you to fit into their process, and road mapping might not be part of their process. So, you do have to make sure that the client is a good fit and try to get a good feeling about it. I'd say there's two. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any other, just in the selling aspect or
in general. Could be selling, could be positioning, could be fulfillment, could be missed opportunity, pitching to close the full engagement after the delivery of the roadmap. So like, hey, here's your roadmap, bye. Like that could be a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of hard to know because I don't really know exactly because I'm not really watching freelancers sell, but I would, imagine that a lot of people, as you say, with the follow-up thing, that's something that I see really commonly with freelancers, and I used to be really bad at it myself, is that we're not very good at following up with people in general, whether it's to do with road mapping or not, but I'll use the road mapping example. For example, if you say that road mapping is a good next step, these are my dates, and then you don't hear back, you probably just assume that they're not interested. But just make sure you are following up with that. Just once or twice, really casually. And then again, after the road mapping, make sure you follow up, not too often. Are you interested in doing the project? I think that's a really good one. And then I think this kind of links back to the confidence part, but I think I can imagine some people might oversell it a little bit. We always find being quite casual about road mapping and what it is. We don't really say much in our initial email about road mapping. Like, we're not getting on a call. We don't even call it a sales call. We just call it a call. And we're not like hard selling road mapping. This is why we do it. This is what it is. This is blah, blah, blah. Some people do that, like with a presentation or something like that, but we don't tend to do that. We just kind of mention it. And then we have like a document that we send if they want to find out more and go into more detail about it. We have that available there, but we're not writing these like really long sales pitch emails about road mapping. It's very kind of casual. Like, this is just the next step. This is our availability. If you want to go for it, go for it. If not, don't. But yeah, so I'd say try not to overthink it as well. I'm not sure how many points that was.
I think it's at least 3 and at most 4.
That's okay. You're allowed to do 3. 2 would be too little.
It would, yeah. So the tying everything together there is that if you think this sounds cool, keep an eye out for that deal. We're going to open it the Tuesday before Black Friday and then close it on Cyber Monday. Projectpack.co to get on her email list. If you're already on the DAYF list, you should hopefully hear about it. And then if you're here because you already bought it, thanks again for buying the thing from future Zach and future Laura. And then before we go, I have a couple like nuts and bolts deep dive questions that we'll dig into here. So stay tuned for a sec if you're with the bonus section Black Friday customers, and for everybody who is on the main DYF episode, thank you and goodbye, I guess. Is that how we do this transition? Does that feel smooth, Laura? You look like it feels real smooth. Yeah.
Talk to you later.
Yeah. Thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.